I need a motion, come out of closed session.
I make a motion, we come out of closed session.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
We have a closed session. First off, in our closed session, just to be, transparent, we discussed the real estate matter and the personnel matter. And, that's probably getting good. The next is a moment of silence, and, it's kind of heartfelt that we lost, Gordon's wife. And, yeah. So, that's kind of a blow, like, we, dominoes one after the other. So, let's remember her in our silence, if you will. Let's have a moment of silence. Thank you. Several pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment.
Stephen Crown.
Well, that's the right side of the Yeah. Sure.
Stephen Crown, 812 Ocean Boulevard. I think most of you already know that. I'm here because of two items. The first one is on the agenda for tonight for the clearing of 814, 816 for a parking lot. I'll be 100% honest and say I'm kind of happy about the clearing of the lot because as the old town manager called it, the wharf rats like to hang out there. So I'm happy about that. My concern is two things. The natural area, I hope we're going to keep part of that. That is a nesting ground for blue herrings. They come every spring. I get to listen to them chortle all day long. And I would hate to miss out on that. The second thing is I would like to see a privacy fence because I do already without a parking lot there, have people cut through from Ocean to Anderson. And I don't really like seeing my Ring camera go off all day, honestly. I'm worried about the dump of trash in the yard. I do get it from the putt-putt side already, even though there's a fence, they throw it over the fence. So anything that we can do to deter that, I would appreciate it to keep the wharf rats away. The second thing I wanted to bring up is just to ask you to reconsider the noise ordinance again this year before we get into season. I did a little research. I've done a lot of research over the past 8 years that I've been trying to get this changed, and the city of Raleigh has just updated theirs. There is not a single municipality or public entity that allows outdoor DJs. The noise has to start inside with a speaker coming out. None of them allow an outdoor DJ. It's not that I don't want the patio playground to succeed. Absolutely do. I would just like to see the days changed, maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday till 11, not every day till 11. And City of Raleigh also, among other places, Chapel Hill, Burlington, I think was one of them, also changed it where it's different for amplified sound and the thumpy thump bass sound. There's different decibel levels. So if we could check into that, I would appreciate it. I know that was another issue with the town manager. So I'm going to bring it up again now that we have a new town manager. That's it. That's really all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Michelle, anyone else? Anyone have a comment? Please step forward. Okay. Hearing none. The mayor's minute, change up again a little bit. Last meeting, we had a gentleman voice a complaint or concern about it. How we handle the Board of Adjustment and how we handle people on this board, on that board and other boards. And, something like that we take seriously, that we want to make sure we're transparent and we approach and address these issues. So I've asked our legal counsel to look into this, and I think he has a quick report he'd like to discuss.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's always good to start at the beginning. I don't know about you. It helps me understand things. The people before you here, the Board of Commissioners, are elected by you to establish policies in Topsail Beach, particularly regarding land use and zoning. The Board of Adjustment exists, all of whom are appointed by the Board of Commissioners to consider appeals from the meaning of those zoning ordinances, or whether or not to grant variances from those ordinances in particular defined circumstances, subject to rigorous standards that have to be met. They make their decisions on what they call a quasi-judicial basis, meaning they can only make their decisions based on the evidence that comes before them during the hearing and based on the law that's applicable. As opposed to when these good folks are meeting to determine policy, they can base it on anything they want. Not necessarily the subject of standards. You've elected them based on what you believe to be their good judgment, making decisions, that kind of thing. An issue was raised about whether or not if a commissioner who's elected can or should always be allowed to serve on the Board of Adjustment, thinking that perhaps a member of the Board of Commissioners could have a prejudgment about perhaps what the meaning of certain ordinances are. Maybe even have a role in having the ordinance passed or amended or modified or whatnot. And I thought that was a pretty interesting subject. And basically, though, this is what I found. An elected member of a town governing body can also concurrently serve on the Board of Adjustment. That is provided by our Constitution and by state statute that's provided by the General Assembly. Thus, dual office holding under our state constitution or statutes does not inherently result in a conflict of interest. The fact that a conflict could conceivably arise does not rise to the level of an appearance of a conflict. That is more than a mere possibility than that an impression of a conflict might arise is just simply not enough. In other words, the General Assembly has apparently spoken that this remote possibility that a conflict could arise is not a reason to prevent what the state constitution and what state statutes otherwise provide, that you can hold those offices at the same time. There is even case law that came out of the town of Swansboro. Swansboro had an ordinance that said if you're a member of the elected body, you can't serve on the Board of Adjustment. Went all the way up to North Carolina Supreme Court, says you can't do that. The Constitution and the General Assembly has spoken. My gosh, you can have dual office sharing in that particular kind of narrow situation. So the mere fact that there could be conceivably in the future a case could maybe come up where there might be a conflict of interest is not a reason to have a prophylactic rule against it. Okay. Now, of course, if you're on the Board of Adjustment, even if you're a member of this elected body, that doesn't mean you're not subject to the conflict of interest rules, and they are there. Okay. These provisions outline situations where a member should not vote, that the outcome will have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact on a member, that the member has a close family, business, or other associational relationship with the landowner or an applicant. In a quasi-judicial matter, that member would, let's say, has a fixed opinion prior to the hearing that is not susceptible to change, or has taken part in undisclosed ex parte communication. Ex parte communication is basically doing things through the back door, and it's not out in the open during the hearing and that sort of thing. Of course, those rules of conflict of interest will apply always, no matter what. But the issue was raised this person expressed the point of view that the Board of Adjustment members shouldn't even have to go through that process. They should just resign and not even have to deal with it if the fact should ever arise that the issue has to be examined. But I think I've given you a fairly good overview as to why basically the General Assembly has spoken about that. Now, of course, these safeguards will exist, will always exist, and there is a procedure that is set forth in our statutes about the procedure for resolving these things. If an objection is raised to a member participating in that hearing, and that member doesn't agree to be recused, the remaining members of the Board of Adjustment vote on the objection by majority vote. Interestingly, I am aware that some municipalities require at least one or more Board of Adjustment members to be a member of the elected body because they want to make sure that the Board of Adjustment is aware of how these rules get passed and what was the reason behind the rule. They oftentimes find that the guide they're thinking is why that's a good idea. Indeed, get this, there is a state statute that provides that if this board so chose, they could designate themselves to be the Board of Adjustment. In other words, not appoint them. They could, as a body, sit and be the Board of Adjustment as well. That's going on in towns like Kings Mountain, and up to really about 4 years ago, that's the way Riceville Beach had done it for at least 60 years. So I am not aware of a town policy on this subject other than what is stated here in our ordinances, that no more than one regular member and one alternate member of the BOA shall be permitted to sit concurrently on the planning board or on the Board of Adjustment. So ordinances say you can have one, but you can't have more. Well, what's interesting about that is that I'm not even sure that's legal under the town of Swansboro case. Because Swansboro passed an ordinance that placed a restriction. True, the ordinance there said no. We say just one, right? Would that survive a court challenge? Heck, I don't know. Well, to quote the prophet Job, I've spoken too much already of things I do not understand.
Hey, Steve, I hope that confuses everyone or adds some clarity. But again, we take it seriously. Or complaint, we want to hear it. We want to be able to respond to it. All said and done. Need to have approval of the regular agenda. There is one update or addition. It'd be 7E. It's on the consent agenda for update. Bank signature card to add Alex. And then we have a one that we'll bring up, item 14A, parking on the side end, a clarification of how that's going to be handled. So there are the two items to add. On my standpoint, anyone else have anything? Motion?
I make a motion, we approve the amended agenda.
Second? Have a motion to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Okay, conflict of interest. What we do, Alex? No. No? Okay. No.
No.
No. Okay, good. Approval of consent agenda. Comment?
We approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing, there is none. So that leads us to the one, we have some people here with big skin. Presentation from Pender County Tax Office on the reevaluation process. I do want to note that there are no numbers coming out at this point. I think everyone is fearful and all right today. And hopefully we'll get, if we can get the county to agree, we might speed this process up so it's not every X number of years, but maybe shorten it out. So if there is a change in values of property, we don't feel it as bad. So with that, let's have a presentation.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Connor. I'm here, as we spoke about, to address the 2026 Pender County reappraisal. So I'd like to thank the board as well as the assembled folks at Topsail Beach for the opportunity to address you, provide some updates, a little clarity on the process. So big picture, reappraisal is something that happens based on North Carolina statute no longer than every 8 years. To the mayor's point, it is something that a lot of counties look at in terms of shortening that cycle and trying to keep that a little bit more regular, but statutorily it occurs no later than every 8 years. In this particular case, the 2026 reappraisal is looking at things through the lens of an effective date of reappraisal for January 1st, 2026. So that's kind of the guideline for all pieces that happen. What happens with reappraisal is that we are effectively redistributing the tax burden across the county. So we're looking at different areas, different types of property, things grow at different rates in different places over different types of things. So by looking at reappraisal as a county, we're able to help redistribute and get things for appropriate rates and appropriate values for January 1st, 2026. So one thing that is important to remember is, as the mayor indicated, because these things happen on standard cycles, in this particular case, the last county cycle was 2019. So those values have remained in place from 2019 until 2026. Next cycle will be to be determined, but those values for 2026 will stay in place until the next cycle. At this particular moment, Pender County, while it is still continuing to grow, is approaching 55,000 parcels. So there are a significant number of parcels to the county. So when we do reappraisal, we're looking at every one of those parcels to bring that to an appropriate fair market value for 2026. So what reappraisal does is it looks at the idea of what is 100% of fair market value for a given effective date. So statutorily, what we're looking at is that all parcels for both real and personal property are brought to what their true value in money is. True value is, to break it down to its kind of simplest concept, a willing buyer and a willing seller that are engaging in a marketplace transaction where we can actually derive from what that sale is genuine information on what fair market value is. There are no favorable deals. Things represent what marketplace information is so that we can work with that data to get to what fair market value is for neighborhoods, for the county in and of itself. Over time, things do obviously change in value, and that is something that from cycle over cycle, you'll see fluctuation moving one direction or the other. What is very, very important and is often, unfortunately, a misperception, the tax department does not create or make a determination what it feels market value should be. What the tax department does is it follows what marketplace sales have been for a given neighborhood, for a given region, for different types of property, and it follows the facts to where that leads us in terms of what is fair market value for a given item, for a given area. And that is how sales models are developed, is that we look at things based on what has happened during that cycle and use that to bring ourselves to fair market value. But that information and that starting point comes from the buyers and sellers within Pender County, in this case within Topsail Beach community, and we follow where they point us in terms of marketplace value. As far as how reappraisal works, I'm sure there were a number of people that had folks knocking on their doors that would have seen our data collectors out in the field. So everything that we do starts with data collection. We look at what is happening within the data on our property record cards, within what we can determine with boots on ground, what is the most accurate data so that we can properly value things and make sure we're starting from good fundamental information. We look at where the current neighborhood boundaries are and make determinations based on sales, based on age and quality and different types of property, in some cases view, which is a very relevant thing out here. Are these the most appropriate boundaries for us to develop what value is? We look at what sales have occurred. So in this case, for a 2026 reappraisal, we're looking at 2024 and 2025 sales and making determinations for what is the most relevant sales to that period. We set land valuation based on where those sales point us. Similarly, we also work building valuation. That happens through schedule of value documents that are approved by Pender County Board of Commissioners. We look at all parcels in terms of a review for everything parcel by parcel. So for all 55,000 parcels in Pender County, those have been touched by the folks that are actually working the reappraisal process to make sure that every single taxpayer is getting a fair and equitable valuation. Finally, with taxes, there is the ability, at least on the property tax side, to actually appeal that property value. It's something that doesn't exist within all taxation, but it is a very, very important part of the process. If there's something within the data or within the value that is in error, or that we have, done something where the value could be properly dialed in, That is something that is open to the taxpayers. They have the ability to appeal the parcel value, provide information or some sort of comparable sales, something that points us in the direction of where that value should be. We absolutely work those appeals and follow where that takes us in terms of that. But this is a very, very open process where the taxpayers do have a stake to be able to help point us in a direction. As far as the timeline for reappraisal, our folks would have started out in the field at the beginning of 2024 through the spring of 2025, doing data collection, going neighborhood by neighborhood, township by township, working through all field work and completing site visits. In the spring of 2025, our team was working on the development of value models, reviewing sales, looking at neighborhood boundaries, taking those steps to start building the foundation for the value. From the spring of 2025 through the beginning of this year, they would have taken those sales models, that information, the foundation for the reappraisal, and started going through parcel by parcel by parcel and ensuring that every parcel is being fairly and appropriately valued. In coming days, we will be getting value notices mailed out, and those value notices will reflect change of value for the 2026 reappraisal, and what is going to be used will be applicable to billing for summer of 2026. And again, during that process, there is absolutely an ability to appeal that process. Our folks will take a look at those appeals. They will work that process. There is still a further recourse for the taxpayers that they can appeal to the county's Board of Equalization and Review. So there are a number of different steps within the process that give the taxpayers the ability and different recourses to ensure that their voice is heard. As mentioned, our values come from both the property's data as well as the actual sales that help influence the general market activity. There are some things that are very, very difficult to tell from the field where there could potentially be a data piece in terms of what might generate in a field. If there's something that is finished or unfinished, that level of finish might be very difficult to tell from the exterior. If there's something in the way of vaulted or cathedral ceilings within a house that might impact what the perceived square footage is from the outside, there are things that might just be very, very difficult for us to know, that we have the ability to work that information through appeal. Similarly, to try to work the big picture of 55,000 parcels in a county, what we're doing is we're working with our schedule of values and our sales to generate values for things that did not sell, and working effectively from sales information to make determinations of what is fair market value for the things that have not sold. The process of doing this is what's referred to as mass appraisal, which differs very, very greatly from fee appraisal. When somebody generates a mortgage for a singular purchase, typically a fee appraisal is done. It looks at a few very, very specific comparables. What mass appraisal does and how a county or a larger jurisdiction would do things is by looking at neighborhoods as a whole, in some cases, larger rural regions of the county as a whole, and looking at all the sales activity and kind of a broader swath of sales to be able to develop a singular model that would apply to all of those properties and that accounts for how different things would stack up within there. So there are industry standard ways that we do that, and that's what helps a county to be able to address 55,000 parcels at a singular time. There are very, very industry standard ways that we do this. The most big piece of that is we look at a sales ratio report. And what that looks at is essentially what did the property sell for? What assessed value does the county have assessed to that parcel? It's how we develop our models behind the scenes. We look at taking the assessed value on our side of things in terms of how we are valuing that, dividing that by the sales price. And obviously the closer to 100%, we know that we are in line to what the market is actually telling us. We're looking at a number of properties. In most cases, we're looking at entire neighborhoods, in some cases, larger regions. We're not looking at one singular property as being the answer to everything. We look at a number of different properties and use that to help get us to where fair market value is. Since 2019 reappraisal, obviously a lot of different things have changed. Some areas have changed very, very significantly. Some areas have stayed relatively similar. When we look at those different things in terms of land, in terms of different types of improvements, that is where we follow what the market is actually telling us, how to get to what is fair market value for 2026. All things do not move in a singular direction or to a singular amount. Coming into some specific sales, just so folks can kind of see what we're seeing when we do sales review. We have a number of different properties that are in the Topsail community. This is a 2018 home that for 2019 would have been a very new home at the time of that reappraisal. It had an assessed value of $451,000 on it. This property just sold in mid-November of last year for $965,000. We can see that's an increase of 114%, or more than double the assessed value from 2019. Next property is also a relatively newer beach house in the community. In 2004 home that for 2019 was assessed at $325,000. Sold in September of last year for $817,000. Has an increase of 151% from its prior assessed value. I would point out that the sales that you're seeing are all sales that have had no significant degree of renovation. Sales that, at a best case scenario, if they don't have original components, have updated original components such as the original roof or the original HVAC unit. They're deferred maintenance updates. These are not renovated homes. This is a 1968 beach house that for 2019 was assessed at $446,000, that sold in August of last year for $1.1 million, for an increase of 146%. A 1959 beach home that in 2019 was assessed at $286,000, sold in September of last year for $670,000. That is an increase of 133%. Moving into more subdivision style homes, but still within the community. This is a 2016 home that in 2019 was assessed at $227,000, sold in June of last year for $414,000. That's an increase of 82%. The 2002 home that was assessed for 2019 at $172,000, sold in April of last year for $380,000, an increase of 120%. We have a 2004 home that was assessed in 2019 at $186,000, sold in late March of last year for $379,000. That is an increase of 103%. We have a 2001 home that was assessed in 2019 at $180,000, sold in August of 2025 for $325,000. That is an increase of 80%. So to the question of, are these simply Topsail sales, or is this happening throughout Pender County? We have other examples of what's happening, just to kind of broaden the focus for what this looks like throughout Pender County. Property is in Berga, a 1978 very conventional brick ranch, was assessed in 2019 at $120,000, sold in September of last year for $263,000. It's an increase of 118%. Similarly, older home in Berga, the 1964 home that was assessed in 2019 at $91,000, sold in September of last year for $257,000. That is a 181% adjustment, which speaks to the idea of things growing at different rates. The property in Grady that is a 2010 home that in 2019 was assessed at $202,000, sold in November of last year for $375,000. That is an increase of 85%. This is a home in Columbia that is a 1985 home. In 2019 was assessed at $153,000, sold in July of last year for $288,000. That is an increase of 88%. Rib Ranch in Rocky Point is a 1981 home. In 2019 was assessed at $122,000. Sold in August of 2025 for $315,000. That is an increase of 156%. A beach style home in Holly that is a 2000 home was assessed in 2019 at $191,000. Sold in June of last year for $403,000. That's an increase of 110%. Moving to some manufactured properties to again reflect as much variety on what we're seeing within the sales growth or the sales change in Pender County. This is actually within the community. It's a 1986 manufactured home that in 2019 was assessed at $80,000, sold in December of 2024 for $208,000, at an increase of 160%. The manufactured home in Rocky Point, a very, very typical 1997 double-wide property, was assessed, in 2019 for $71,000, sold in October of 2025 for $230,000. That's an increase of 223%. The manufactured home in Grady, that is a 2002. 2019 was assessed at $113,000, sold in October of 2025 for $225,000, an increase of 99%. We have a couple of different commercial examples. This is a Food Lion in Burgaw, the 1985 shopping center. 2019 was assessed at $2.2 million, sold in October of 2024 for $6 million. That is an increase of 168%. We have a service garage warehouse in Rocky Point that is a 1999. In 2019, it was assessed at $419,000, sold in September of 2025 for $710,000. That is an increase of 69%. Another sale, a slightly newer shopping center in Rocky Point, it's a 2006. In 2019 was assessed at $538,000, sold in March 2025 for $1 million. That is an increase of 86%. In regards to the assessed value versus the tax rate, these are two separate pieces. What we do on the appraisal side is we are following up on fair market value. That is what happens within the tax office. What the tax office does not do is set the tax rate at which the billing will further be calculated. That is determined by Pender County, that's determined by different municipalities, that's determined by fire districts. So those two different pieces are what generate the billing, but the tax office only has a responsibility to the assessed value side. Those tax rates do get set, and the amount of billing cannot be determined until we do have tax rates behind them, but that is a separate piece that is out of the hands of the tax office. The appeal process essentially has three key steps: review, compare, and appeal. For the review piece, Pender County has a very, very good GIS department. There are a number of different mapping tools online that have property record card information, have all of the information that we are looking at behind the scenes in terms of different neighborhood data, different parcel level data. That is available for the taxpayers to be able to review their information for what is currently on file with the tax department for their different structural building components and those pieces to determine, is there something going on with that would be a source of appeal. So starting with knowing, is the data on your parcel correct? It's certainly the best place to start with an appeal. If the data is correct, but it looks to be a sales-driven piece, Pender County is actually developing a sales comparison tool so that the same sort of qualified sales that we are looking at, that are helping to fuel sales model, that are helping to indicate fair market value, are going to be publicly available through an online application. That is a very, very transparent process. The Pender County citizens will be able to look at that and make determinations, use different filtering tools in there to identify what are comparable properties to my property and identify, is there something within sales that we need to be looking at again? And finally, if there is something going on based on a review or a comparison that there is something in error, or just a general feeling that I do not feel this is an appropriate value, again, there is an ability within property tax to be able to appeal that value. That can be appealed. Our staff will review every appeal, look at supporting information, look at any documentation that's provided, look at the root cause as far as any commentary for what is fueling the appeal, and we will absolutely follow up on every single appeal and ensure from the tax office side of it that we have gotten to what is the most appropriate fair market value. If that value is still unsatisfactory to the taxpayer, they would have further recourse to appeal to the County Board of Equalization and Review. That would be essentially a similarly quasi-judicial body that would follow all evidence that's presented by both the county and the taxpayers and weigh in with their own determination on what fair market value is. And if at that point that is still an unsatisfactory value, the taxpayers would have the ability and the recourse to appeal that to the state property tax commission. And that would again go to a different fact-finding body that would look at both sides of the evidence and make a determination for value. So at many different levels, there's the ability to look at where this value is and for the taxpayers to have a stake. And I do not feel this is an appropriate fair market value and to be able to appeal that. It is largely an evidence-based process. So we would need to have something that supports where that value would be in error, but we will follow that. In a lot of cases, there is a conflation that appeals are not necessarily driven by value, that fair market value is genuinely not appropriate. In a lot of cases, the concerns are, to the mayor's point, this changed from cycle over cycle a significant percentage, or I do not know that this is going to be affordable in terms of billing, or my taxes might have changed by such and such a degree, or at least the value did, but I have not seen a difference in terms of county or municipal services. Those are all entirely valid concerns, but those are things that would be outside of the scope of what the tax office can handle on appeal. We are simply following where fair market value points us and approaching that from the lens of value and sales. In terms of the reappraisal piece, as mentioned, the effective date of reappraisal for all parcels countywide is January 1st of 2026. The notices are about to be mailed within the next month, so those will be coming out in March. It actually could be towards the end of March, later into April, but it is going to be a March timeframe on that. The county's Board of Equalization Review will convene a little bit later in the spring. The deadline to submit real property appeals is similarly going to be in mid-May, so there's more to come on that specific date. The tax bills for that are going to be based on summer of 2026. So the typical payment cycle, this would be the first cycle that would reflect 2026 reappraisal values. What is being done right now, or what has actually just been done, is finalizing the last pieces of the value review, the last pieces of sales review, and getting everything tied up for the last sale through the end of the year. Again, we are assessing for January 1st, 2026. So we're still following up on all qualified sales through the end of the year, and making sure we have every bit of sales data accounted for. Notices will be mailed in March, and that appeals process will start a little bit later in the spring and run through the summer or whenever the appeals window is fully completed. And with that said, that is a lot of information. Are there any questions?
Yes, real quick. This house that sold in 2025.
Mhm.
Is that what their tax value would be? For you guys, I mean, you guys looking at, it sold for $200,000. Were y'all also look at that, say, okay, that house is a $200,000 house?
It's a great question. So with that, we don't look at one singular sale as setting a model. In some cases, folks get better or worse deals within, it's a sale that would be used within the range of study for that neighborhood and that area. So obviously this, an individual sale for something that's sold during that window is going to be a tremendous piece of evidence for us, but we're also going to be looking at other sales. So if something sold across the street, what else is selling in that area so that we can have a slightly more complete picture and set the best possible sales model. We're not looking at one singular sale and saying that is a piece of evidence any more than we would with something that did not sell, that we find one property and say, aha, that's the value. We look for, for fairness and equitability at a larger piece in terms of sales.
I'm just wondering, so like, if you go value, it sold for 200,000, y'all valued it 300,000. We're not have a good case to appeal, and I just sold it half for 200,000. How could you say it worth it?
Yeah, very, very much so. Absolutely. The singular best comparable for any given property is itself, but it does not necessarily limit to that one property is the only thing that we would look at. But yes, if there's that sort of disparity that the market has told us that it's worth that, and our evidence has pointed us to a very different direction, then that's absolutely something that we would look at. Yeah, of course.
So in the examples you gave, the range of increase went from 69% to 225%. Nothing below 69. I'm looking at the faces out there and everybody, is that what we should expect?
In terms of notice values, that is certainly very possible. And that is, again, the idea of why we look at things singularly, that not all things grow based on a given type or a given region at the same rate. If the question that we're actually driving at is, should they anticipate that in terms of potential notice values? It is possible. Is that going to correlate to that is the same percentage of billing change? That is not necessarily the case, but based on notice values, these are examples of the sales that we are looking at and what is happening, and different examples to call out different pieces, different areas, different types of things, even within the Topsail community, that this is what the market is telling us. These are the sort of sales that fuel the models that drive what change of value notices are, good, bad, or otherwise. That's the sort of sales information that these values are rooted in.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, just a couple of questions. Could you go back about 5 slides? So getting to the, you were getting to the part, I think we were first talking about the appeal process. Let's see. Yeah, go, you just passed it, I think. Thank you.
Okay.
The green, the second thing here, where the appraisers evaluate market activity to determine appraised value or fair market value. What's the difference between appraised value and fair market value?
It's essentially different language so that folks can kind of understand whichever way they prefer to think of it. But appraised value should be at 100% of what fair market value is. So if we use the term fair market value, in some cases, that's not necessarily the most approachable language for folks, but the assessed value that folks are seeing on their change of value notice is going to be what fair market value is statutorily. assessed value from the tax office does need to be at 100% of what fair market value is.
Okay, could you then go towards the end, maybe one or two? Stop.
Okay.
The green one again. An appraiser will complete an initial follow-up on the value and data. Who is the appraiser? Who is the appraiser employed by?
So the appraisers are actually employed on behalf of Pender County from a firm, Vincent Valuations, that is supporting the appeals process.
So it's a third party, though. It's not an employee of the county of Denver.
No, correct.
And they specialize in doing these mass appraisals you're talking about.
That is correct.
They're the ones though who set the appraised value, correct?
That is correct.
So when you do an evidence to support an appeal, if the landowner wanted to obtain a independent appraisal, they even say by an MAI, but is that something that would be considered in the appeal?
Absolutely, that would be considered. So as a general rule of thumb, we do not necessarily encourage that taxpayers, that they feel the need to go out and contract that, but absolutely, if they choose to do so, they certainly can. And that is, again, a piece of evidence that both the folks that are working those appeals on the tax office side of things would consider. With fee appraisals, if that is something being generated, we would need to see the entire fee appraisal to understand what adjustments are being made, what comparable sales are being used, the methodology of the fee appraiser, to look at how they're deriving their value, as opposed to what the tax office is looking at on its end. But that can certainly be done. That is also a piece that can be used to support an appeal further to the Board of Equalization. If that is not on the initial appeal to the county, if there's no change or it does not look that the county feels that that is an appropriate appraisal, which it does in some cases happen. Sometimes that is compelling evidence, sometimes it is not, that can be used for the Board of Equalization. But does the taxpayer to appeal need to go and actually commission a fee appraisal? They do not. In a lot of cases, appraisals, in a lot of cases, appeals can be very, very easily supported based on the providing of comparable sales data, or that there's something going on that their square footage data could be potentially off based on things we spoke about, that there is a vaulted living room that we can't account for. There are a number of different things that can be done to support an appeal. Does the taxpayer have to commission a fee appraisal? They do not.
One unique aspect of Topsail Beach is that there are properties on the sound side that are particularly susceptible to flooding. Do you have a sense as to what effect of that flooding is, if any, on the values of those properties in comparison to the other sound side properties that are not as susceptible?
So with that, that is going to be a piece of what we spoke about in terms of neighborhood delineation, that we would break those different pieces out to have the most reflective individual pieces, so that in looking at individual sales, we can isolate things based on view or based on locality. So that would actually be reflected within how the sales for a given neighborhood are broken out. So we're not simply looking at everything as being one giant neighborhood, that all other things are equal. We've isolated, kind of honed into the best of what we can do on breaking things into individual pieces for exactly the sort of concern you're speaking about.
But that the owner of that property, when they get a notice from you that's coming on, say, next month, right? It's not going to go into those factors. It's simply going to tell them what the bottom line conclusion is as to the appraised value. Is that right?
It is going to have that, but that is the piece where that information in terms of that property record card will exist online, so that the owners will have visibility.
So how are they able to determine then what are all the factors that came into play in terms of how that value was arrived at?
So,
Like, for instance, did they in fact consider it as susceptible to flooding?
yes, so those sort of adjustments will actually exist on the property record card, and those are things that they.
Oh, it would. So there'll be a flooding adjustment, for instance, that will be shown on the property tax card?
Yes, in a lot of cases, these things are actually going to be essentially in code based on how our system actually will perceive it. But is that something that on appeal or in discussing with somebody from the tax office that we can walk an owner through different factors of, has this been considered? Is there an adjustment for that?
Okay,
Yes.
so it'll be a code. So they need to go to someplace then to look and say, what does this code mean?
Correct, and that sort of information is actually going to be within the schedule of values, but for approachability and for ease of that, that is something that the property record card for some folks is easier to decipher than others. But yes, with those things, that information is out there to the best of what the system can put out there publicly without having an extraordinarily long document that is narrative. It's going to be how that's broken out based on the system.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
So what is the URL for the property record card, or where do we as landowners go to?
So that is actually on the Pender County GIS.
If you just Google Pender County GIS, it'll be the first result.
Yeah.
It's also a link to it on the Pender County website.
One more question. So out of 55,000 parcels, what percentage of those parcels do you model for appeals? What do you expect to receive?
It is entirely variable. Every single county, every single reappraisal is totally variable. So there's not a way to be able to pin that down to a number right now, and nothing has actually hit anybody's mailbox. So that is entirely up to the tax base of Pender County.
So historically, what is the success rate of appeals?
Success rate in what regard?
Landowners versus county valuations. When they review the reevaluation up or down.
Are you asking what amount of appeals causes a change in value? Again, that is entirely variable. It's an evidence-based process. So it's not unfortunately as simple as somebody's appealed and X percentage of these will change. It's a question of, is there something that is compelling evidence to where the county's model is actually wrong, or there is a justification for that value to change. So it is a totally variable process. Unfortunately, it can't be pinned down in terms of this is a predictive number.
Else?
When will we see the appraisal for all Topsail Beach properties together?
In terms of the numbers for that,
No, today. When will we know what we're working with when we set the tax rate?
The aggregate land value for Topsail Beach, correct, John?
Yes.
that information would be coming out in March, correct?
So we'll get it at the same time the landowners get their notice.
I thought that was something that we were talking to, the county manager about getting him on Friday. Is that what Ryan was talking about?
Yeah, so we're working with Colby to get that information to you guys a little bit sooner than later. So it should be in the next week or so.
Oh, good.
By March 15th, maybe?
Before that.
Be correct.
Before March 15th.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to get a hard job. Any questions from the audience? Please, if you would step up and you can step aside the way, because you've got probably answers. So.
Larry Earl, 1223 Carolina Boulevard. So you showed the pictures of the different areas with the increase in value with the sales and all. When you look at Topsail Beach, are we in the top? I mean, you had the heading Topsail. So is Topsail Beach all Topsail, or is Topsail Beach actually broken into neighborhoods that you were referencing in some situations? Or is it part of a bigger island entity or what?
No, Topsail is actually broken into a tremendous number of different components. That is the piece of that neighborhood delineation. That's more referencing geographically, generally this part of the county or this specific township. It is not to say
250 neighborhoods.
Topsail Beach itself, I would say, is between 12 and 15 neighborhoods off the top of my head, and it goes depending on whether you're on Sound side, Ocean side, on the northern side, of the island, southern side. There's a lot of different factors. Sorry, do you want me to go ahead and say that?
Sorry about that.
Sorry for the side conversation.
What's going on right
All good.
Please state your name and who you're with, et cetera.
My name is Matthew Callis. I work for Vincent Valuation. Essentially, we have 200 to 250 different neighborhoods within the county. I know the term neighborhood can be either all encompassing or really small. There are some neighborhoods that can get down to 25 to 50 houses, others that are in 1,000, 1,500. Topsail Beach itself is broken into 12 to 15 neighborhoods, depending on where on the island you are, whether you're on the Sound side, Ocean side, and yeah, the other factors will determine what neighborhood you're in.
So just 12 to 15 for the whole island.
For the island itself, yes. And then once you get off the island into Surf City, it starts getting a lot more complicated with how many neighborhoods there are. Because each subdevelopment could become its own neighborhood and then.
Any additional questions? Comments?
So to be clear, the 12 to 15 neighborhoods is Henry County, Topsail Island, not necessarily Topsail Beach.
Correct. Yeah, that's for the island specifically, yes.
I will say too, we get a lot of this, for calls in town hall, and they'll call about tax information and they'll say, it says Topsail, but it is not in our town. So we've realized it's Topsail Township, which is the tax district, which encompasses all the way Hampstead, everywhere. So I mean, Topsail Township is not the town of Topsail Beach. Very confusing.
Mayor, my question is for the staff, Connie and Christina. They gave us a date of March 15th. Our first budget workshop is on March 18th.
Right under the line.
Are you guys going to be desperate for those 3 or 4 days to put things together for us?
We are gonna be desperate. If they can give us
Hoping we'll get
any sooner, that would be great, but we'll do the best we can.
If I could clarify that a little bit. So as far as the aggregate land and building numbers, those are being put together as we speak and to be discussed with Colby shortly. The value change notices where everybody gets their individual value, that's gonna be March 15th is when those are around that.
But you're gonna be able to tell Connie before March 15th what the
Correct.
collective is.
Correct.
Colby.
Colby, yes.
Somewhat. I mean, I'm trying to pin you down as to what we can expect
Yes.
before we start our budget process. March 15th.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
You be held to that. Okay.
We'll be sleeping at the town hall. Christina and I.
You can leave personal phone numbers. How to get in touch with. But thanks for the information. I think it's clear and you did a good job.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, boy. I don't think we can beat that one. Yeah.
That might
Okay, number 9, discuss and consider vote on the 2026 Auto Topsail permit. Yeah.
So I wasn't gonna read this whole thing, but it's gonna be part of it when I give my planning board update. So I'm gonna read this for you guys. So Article 3, Section 18 of the Town Code of Ordinances requires any organization to submit an application to hold a special event. As part of these regulations, any event that participates 200 or more persons in attendance, 200 or more persons in attendance requires approval from the Board of Commissioners. The town has received a special event permit application for the Historical Society of Topsail Island's 2026 Autumn with Topsail Festival. Staff has reviewed the application request for consistency with the requirements and standards set forth in the town code for special events. There are a few things that have changed because of the lot not being available, but everything else is the same as it has been introduced.
I think on the map, that was included in the packet, you can see how our building impacts the layout. So there is a change in the layout. I think that was discussed earlier, maybe what I don't care. So. I need a motion.
I make a motion, we approve allowing the 2026 Autumn with Topsail.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
It passes. Thank you. Okay, next is update Parks and Recreation. Let's see, there was no,
It'll cancel.
no meetings, so no update. So, update the planning board. You're back.
Hey again. All right, so the planning board met January 28th and discussed procedure for a text amendment to chapter 18, article 3, special events.
After discussion with Attorney Coggins, staff has decided that we will present this amendment to the Board of Commissioners at the regular board meeting on March 11th. The next planning board meeting is scheduled for February 25th at 10 a.m. And just for some clarification on that, there were questions as to whether the planning board should actually hear that text amendment because it wasn't chapter 16. Rather it was chapter 18. I mean, we typically take those types of things to them, but after some clarification from Attorney Coggins, we don't have to. So we're going to clarify that with them at their meeting this month to let them know that they don't have to, but at times, if you guys direct us to send it back, then we'll take it to them. So that's what our discussion ended up being.
It was simply based on my thought that the request that is being so minor, relatively minor, that it should be approved administratively. But under your ordinances, it has to come before you, and my thought was that was something you'd like to delegate to Stephanie to handle. That's basically the intent of the proposal.
And when he says Stephanie to handle, it gets signed off by all department heads and then the town manager, and then it comes back to me to issue the permit. So.
So we're gonna look at it in March.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was at the planning board meeting, and my only concern is, having it up to 200 people and relative to parking issues in the summer. So that was my only concern. I thought that was kind of a large number to, have it approved at administrative level. I'd be more comfortable with a smaller number.
Stephanie, is it true that the special events that are anticipating having 200 or more have to go to the board regardless
Yes,
of the time of
it
the
still
season?
has to go. It's
So that's
200
right.
or more.
That's
But-
correct.
So under 200 is 200's a lot in the summer. If we think about a car for every 2 people, that'd be 100 cars.
You could do 100 because I don't think you'll have any more that are 100 to 200 than you have 50 to 100.
That's something that we can look at. If you'd like to look at the language of the ordinance itself, as we're looking at this amendment, that would be the time to do it. So when we bring that to you in March, then we certainly would welcome any other comments.
I would agree. It's fortunately, this is being done in time that even if you reject the amendment, you still have time to act on the application.
So we'll see you in March.
With your diligent staff.
Updated, BIS committee. No meeting, but.
Well, do you want to talk about the water management testing?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, we didn't.
Correct, we didn't have a BIS team meeting because I was out of town, having a good time, actually. But we also have a board of commissioners asked us to put together a task team. Task team is different than a regular team because it's got specific tasks, but the task team was to basically evaluate and summarize existing sources of information related to both stormwater and tidal flooding, define a strategy of prioritizing and addressing key tidal flooding concerns that result in an overall management plan for the town of Topsail Beach. In that regard, our team is composed of myself, Ed Broadhurst, Peter Knowles, Jade Litcher as an alternate in case one of the other members can't come, Tom Hedrick, a representative from TI Coastal, which has been Jamie, and we've met twice. Mayor has attended both of those. John, you attended the tour, so we met once and had a kind of organizational meeting. And then the second time we met was on January 28th, and we had a tour. And Tom and his crew kind of arranged that and took us around. And we basically looked at almost every outfall in the town, started with Nixon and headed all the way down to Florida, and looked at the different conditions of the pipes that exist. So that's stage 2. We have a long list of action items that we want to pursue. The tour was one of those action items. And one of the things that Tom and his team were going to do early on in March is they're gonna scope out all of the outfalls. Camera in the outfall itself, see the condition of that pipe, whether it be concrete or metal or so forth, and scope that out, and that would be a good piece of information for us to have in terms of what things need to be fixed right away. We're gonna explore some different check valve type opportunities. We did see on our tour a duckbill, and it didn't look anything like what I thought it was gonna look like. But it, in essence, is a folded piece of big neoprene rubber that when tide pressure gets on it, it's supposed to fold up. Unfortunately, in our example, it also had oyster shells up and down. So there are restrictions, but, so we're looking at that, and, we're also gonna look at integrating TI Coastal's information, some existing, stormwater information to overlay the two, so we can get a clear definition of where our problems are. And we'll have, we'll talk more in depth about this at our next BIS meeting, which is next Thursday, and we'll set up subsequent meetings after that. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Hey, update on public safety building. Don?
Yeah, I'll take that. It's gonna take us, 2 minutes to go through this, but this is really important to the top of the gate for the future. First, I'd like to make sure you understand who is working with Thomas Construction on this. Nancy, is the other commissioner, Christina and Connie, of course, and then our two, section chiefs, Bo and Sam, for fire and, police. Primarily, those people are just saying are meeting with Thomas, once every several weeks for the last few months. And, other staff was also participating. We're close in terms of getting to 9.6 million. We're not there yet, and we've got, a lot of tough decisions ahead of us. I'm gonna, mention a bunch of numbers, but, quite a few of the numbers still have a lot of uncertainty in them, so I'm not gonna tell as many numbers as you might like to hear, because we're just not there yet. There's a lot of potential for numbers to change. Meeting in January ended with construction costs, including all the labor and material and stuff like insurance and fees that are paid through a contractor. And at that point, at the end of the January meeting, we were at 9.616 million. That's too high, and unfortunately, we knew that we still had a number of additional costs that have to be added in when we're trying to figure out how we're doing against the 9.6. That's things like the sewer was not in that figure I mentioned. There's what's called FFE, which is furniture and fixtures and equipment and stuff that the town has to provide. We're still working on it. We met last Friday. We've left Thomas under a good bit of pressure to understand that we've got to get the cost down on this. And last Friday, they came in with a 2.9% reduction on their cost estimates, which was another $280,000 off. But we still have to add in other things that we know are coming, and those are called, for the most part, soft costs. There are things that don't necessarily go through Thomas, might be paid separately somehow, things that we have to provide and so on. Undersupplied items are part of the soft costs, and that's stuff like allowances in their estimate for tables, chairs, security systems, stuff like that, that we may provide, or a contractor may provide for us. That estimate has an allowance, the Thomas estimate has an allowance of $242,000 for those items. We're hoping that will be whittled down substantially, but we just don't really know what the cost of the installed security systems and cameras and access points and stuff like that is. So hopefully the $242,000 is going to come down some. We had a big surprise in working through the numbers. The builder's risk insurance comes ultimately through Thomas. was initially in their estimate at about $145,000. Well, when they went out and got quotes from their insurance suppliers, the estimate came back at about 250,000, over $100,000 higher. And that was a big surprise to us. And somehow, that's not in that 9.616 figure I mentioned. We're at least 100,000 over what they were counting on when they gave us their quotes. So we're dealing with stuff like that. We did last Friday when we met with them. Thomas had suggested a number of things that they thought we could agree to eliminate, and we came down by $67,000 on things that they suggested to us. We were somewhat uncomfortable, I would say, with the contingency that they had proposed. It originally was at 3% of what the total cost was going to be. And now they have said, hey, we're gonna pay for this out of contingency and that out of contingency. So the contingency that they wanted us to have was cut by about 50%. We're a little uncomfortable with that, so we've agreed up contingency about $50,000. So that's more that we've got to recover somehow. When you add all this stuff up, we're around $250,000 short of getting down to $9.6 million. We're insistent that we get down to the 9.6. So we do have some options that we can still look at that we've got listed out. The things that we don't really want to do. One of them, the current proposal has a standing seam roof across both the apparatus building where the fire trucks park and the administrative building where the offices are. That standing seam roof can be cut in half and use asphalt only on the administrative building, leaving the standing seam on the metal building. And that can save somewhere around $150,000. So that's one opportunity to reduce costs. There's some other smaller ones, such as removing what we're calling deck board screening, think of party board, slats across the parking area down under the administrative building. That does not really have an objectionable appearance, but if we try and reduce the cost, we can replace it with a wire fence, which you don't really want to do, but that would save us maybe $80,000 by going to a chain link fence. We could go to a narrower driveway for parking through, driving through to get under their building. That'd be $10,000. So we've got some things that we can take out that will be painful, but won't destroy the value of the building to the police and fire. One of the things that we're going to investigate, we really discussed this idea with last Friday, the compressor that the fire department uses to compress air into their breathing tanks is a three-phase electrical system, which costs extra to get that power into the building. We decided we could, since we don't ever anticipate having any more three-phase installation into this building except for this compressor, we're going to try looking at an inverter system, which is less expensive to install. So that's a lever. We really don't even know the amount of money that's there. So, what I hope you will realize is that we're going to get down to 9.6 million. But it is going to be painful on some of the things we might have to eliminate. We still got a lot of work to do on this, but we're determined to get to the target goal. So that's where we are. Let me just read a little bit about the timeline here. The town, this comes from a timeline that was presented or prepared by Congress on January 9th. It calls for a town review of the pricing on January 20th, where we're in that process of talking about pricing. That's what I just described. and we're not quite done with it yet. Timeline calls for town review of civil construction documents. So we're going to look at final documents on what they are planning to do the week of February 9/13. Well, here we are in that week. So maybe we will get the final review of documents next week. But we do have a meeting scheduled next week. Their timeline calls for materials procurement to start March 1st. For bids on from all their subs and so on to be opened on March 23. And the town building permit to be issued by March 30th, with a final contract signing on April 13th. So that's kind of the progress we're moving along. Like I said, we're maybe a few days behind on one of those timeline days, so we can catch that up. And we're working hard to do so. Any questions?
Yeah. I had to read through your document that y'all sent out to all of us. And first of all, appreciate all that you and Nancy and the rest of the crew were doing on that, because I know that's been a long process, tiring process too. And the main thing I want to do is make sure our building that we have is functional. I want it to be a nice looking building, but I want it to, I think the most important part is for it to be functional for what we need. I noticed that one of the things that we had our towers, which look pretty, but they're $83,000. So I'm just saying that's one thing. I'm sure we could have a nice building if we wanted to save $83,000 and not have to have our twin towers showing up there. And there's some other things that we could look at there. But the main thing I think we need to make sure we build a building that will do what we want it to do function wise, and then start looking at the aesthetic part of it after we're making sure we've got a building doing what it needs to do.
This building will be here for the next 50 years.
I know it is. But it's got to function too.
Every time you drive by, you want to look and think, God, this ugly ass building.
No, you can build a building that look nice without having to have two towers on it. There's a lot of buildings that don't have towers on here around here that look nice.
To go with chain link fence and be done. Say, yeah, that saves it.
I'm just saying the functionality is more important than the aesthetics of it.
Well, I don't think we're gonna lose the function of the building, because I think, Sam and the chief has really been working on that to make sure.
But I'm just saying, y'all looking to cut your cost, we get $200,000 you have to cut off.
Yeah, and
You're talking the cupolas.
Yeah.
Why don't we if we tore down that existing tower, then we wouldn't need to tie into it. Could we do that?
We're getting in the weeds.
Touche. Touche.
But all the things that we're looking at as a deduct, we're probably gonna try to maybe bid those as an ad alternate. So we would know if the prices come down, and we'd be able to add them back to that number to either support them or not. And I think that's something we get a better price. And keep in mind that all the prices that we're working with now are subs of the contractor. So these are people they work with, and we're getting real numbers each time we go back and ask for a change. And I think that's important that we're getting real numbers in real time. But I think next week's going to be the.
I'd just like to add, on this process we're going through, and I mean the people who are involved in it. This has been a positive communication all the way through. Thomas has worked very well with us. I feel like those of us on the Topsail side of the fence have worked well together, and that we're working very well with Thomas. And it's going to end up being a positive result for everyone. I do hope I convey that we have a tough set of decisions ahead of us in the next few weeks. But we're going to get there.
Yeah, you said that they had open bids and everything. If those bids come out, opened up higher than what we anticipated, what do we do then?
Cut more.
I know, let me buy, I thought you said.
Fourth base.
I thought your guy, you said your guy, working with those guys.
He legally has to go out.
Have to go bids anyway.
Well, and the other thing they did say that it was interesting was the market is hungry right now.
Yes.
That there are a lot of people looking for work. So that may be a positive, and we're close.
Yeah, he's got all the people pre-qualified. to work on this building, so they're ready to go.
When they came back, John didn't say this with the 9.6 million number. We all looked and were excited. Is a little bit with smoke and mirrors because they cut the contingency and they took a lot of things off that we were gonna have to pay for. So it looked good until you started digging down there. But the fact of the matter is, we're somewhere within 250,000 of a 9.6 number. That gives you optimism.
Any questions?
Roger.
Discuss and consider and vote on clearing of, 814, 816 Ocean Boulevard for parking.
So based on direction and discussion at our last meeting, staff has went back and done some digging and looking into what it would cost to clear the lots across the street to prepare them for parking. And I'll actually probably just get Tom up here because he's done all the legwork, if that's okay, Tom, with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
He's done all the legwork, so I don't want to take any of his glory. But you do see in your agenda packets, we do have an approximate cost of $27,500. There is a somewhat of a drawing or a layout of kind of what we're looking at for this. You will be happy to know, Susan, that we are definitely keeping the vegetative buffer that's there, so that'll definitely be there.
I was on last year.
So I'll see if you guys have any questions, or Tom, do you want to add anything to it?
No, I mean, really, I'm here to answer your questions if you have them. I can break down the cost if you need it. What we're looking at, we have had discussions with DOT about getting a driveway permit.
Yes.
It's about 3 weeks to a month out from, when we start submittals and all that stuff. We haven't done anything other than hold discussions until we got the green light, from you guys and find out what you want to do.
If you would, let's add in the privacy fence. 6 feet wood fence.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you look on that drawing, we had, a 35-foot down to 20-foot, vegetation line we were keeping on that side of there. But we can definitely get quotes. And that.
It needs to be on the interior side of the buffer by the parking, not the other.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's 20 to 30.
It goes from 35 feet on the ocean side, down to 20 foot on the, Anderson side.
Not that it applies to me or anything.
It's not next door. Of course, that's on the website, so.
I just ask that you have a conversation with Susan about what is a expense that would be good. In terms of her, what she sees and what she
Absolutely.
doesn't see.
Yeah, the mayor mentioned that to me at the time, but, of course, until we were ready to proceed, I felt like those conversations.
Be amazed at what I see in that.
And there would be trash cans and regular trash pickup, like your guys go around in the summer. I see them.
Yeah, we would maintain it and there would be trash cans there.
Yeah. Why do we have the parking spaces 90-degree angles when it's one-way
That's
traffic going through
What
it?
the DOT,
They specify that?
they did.
Can you ask them for permission to do it differently? It's just gonna be, people don't pull up far enough. I think it's gonna make it.
Well, there's a big enough right of way, big enough drive through in between the two spots that we can have the perpendicular parking like that. That was, like I said, in the original drawing had it, angled, and that was one of their stipulations.
Could you get more spaces in there if it was angled?
I don't think so. I think we actually might get less because of the way the, parking blocks would be.
You have a bigger drive-through and fewer parking spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to revisit with DOT. I don't think they've ever been down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we can try it. Might be able to reduce some of the widths, get a bigger buffer.
Yeah, this is where we need the feedback so that when we do go to DOT, we know what to ask. And
Yeah, I guess before the board right now is we want to move forward or not. This is the number plus the addition of the fence.
What would you guess the fence will cost?
I have no idea, honestly. I'm priced like that recently, so.
Well, but
Because at the 25.76, it'll
No,
take all of the first year parking revenue to cover the cost of doing it.
Yeah, so I'll just break it down for you. It's basically it is $12,000 just for the rock, that we would have to put down because there's no foundation there now. $3,000 for a company to come in that will load and haul off what we tear out. It's another $10,000 we have to pave the aprons going into and out of the parking lot, and then another $1,500 for the wood, the 6x6s that we would put along the outside to hold the gravel in.
Who does the, tire stops? For those in here.
Oh, we would buy those. Yeah, that's included in there as well. I think it was like $1,000 for that. We were still getting some quotes on that.
I have a question. How is their first year revenue if it's gonna be for the construction trucks, the first year?
The bulk of the construction is gonna be when we aren't charging for parking.
Right, that's my question. So you said the 27 would be eaten up by, they would take all the
The
first
cost
year revenue.
to put down the rock, what he just described, based on our average revenue on oceanfront parking, we will make enough in year one to cover this.
But how? Because my understanding was that the construction trucks.
Would use
public
10,
building was gonna
But we
park.
don't charge, they aren't gonna be probably massively using it until the fall. We'll just start construction in May, so when they will really need it is when they're, have all the trades there at the same time. So from October until March, when they're building, we aren't charging for parking anyhow.
Okay.
Charles Thomas.
And if we don't make up all of it this year, after construction's over,
No, I
it will be
get
a
that.
source of revenue.
Understand that timeframe. I didn't know they were coming in.
Is it enough revenue to lose the green
And
space?
to be honest, we didn't talk about it being a paid lot this first year. Initially, when we were talking about this discussion, we were intentionally talking about just doing this for construction vehicles. So I think, the conversation I had with Susan implied that. So I think I wasn't sure that we were going to be doing paid parking this year, but ultimately knew that that would be probably coming.
To me, that's a lot to spend to accommodate construction parking. It's the revenue, we aren't gonna make that much off of it, and we lose green space that may have a different use down the road. It's kind of what I would call a push in a betting world. You get few spaces, it's costly to set up. And it puts us just a little bit closer to looking like Surf City.
I see it as a revenue neutral project to improve downtown. That will produce revenue in the future, and it won't preclude us from doing other things with the property in the future if and when those needs arise. I mean, all we're doing is clearing it and putting gravel on it. So we're not precluding any other future uses. Unless the people that live in that area feel differently. Parking is going to continue exponentially to become a bigger and bigger problem. So there's a little bit of help on the way. So just another look at it.
And my feeling is if we don't do this, we're gonna have a terrible mess with the construction in the latter part of the summer. Because we're gonna have a dozen or 20 construction trucks here every day. So,
So are you gonna reserve that lot
Yeah.
solely for them? Nobody else can park there?
yeah, that'd be my suggestion. That's a construction parking lot, and once they start coming in with a lot of trucks. Because otherwise, we're gonna have a terrible mess here.
So the trucks would use it, is that what you anticipate for unloading and stuff?
No, we're loading, we're getting off of Carolina.
Yeah, so your pickup.
Trains,
Straight, they drive a pickup truck, a lot of times it's one of those ready vehicles, you know, and they got all their tools in there, and they need a place to park. They can't go out here and get parking. Inside fence, because they're gonna be working inside fence, and, I think every square inch is gonna be taken inside the fence.
So the 27,000 kind of then becomes another cost to the building.
You know, we're providing for the future there.
After year one.
After year one, it's gonna pay for itself quicker.
Not that quickly off 20 spots. I mean,
2 years.
there's a lot of, yeah.
It also provides more parking downtown for people who want to come and spend their money at our businesses, which, you know how it is when, in the past, Portman would have an event, and there was nowhere to park. Or have a band or whatever, so I think that's another positive that would be hard to measure, but you would have more parking downtown, which our businesses, I think, would appreciate.
And will we need more parking downtown in the years to come where someone starts talking about renovations of certain buildings and more trades and more workers and more materials? I don't know, but it just seems like a nice buffer to build into the future of downtown for whatever uses. Pop up.
Like I said, it's a push. It just, the positivity of it's not as strong because only getting 20 spaces, but
I'd just like to mention, not really part of the discussion about over there, but we're gonna have a lot of materials unloading happening right here in downtown. And we made it clear to Thomas, that they can't do it off of Anderson. They have to do it off of Carolina. And we talked about, can the trucks get around there? Yeah, they can get around there. So the materials unloading will be on the backside.
Okay, what's the flavor of this board? I need a motion.
I move that we go forward with the parking parking lot preparation as Thomas described.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
um,
Good, pass.
So just for clarification, what exactly do you want me to take back to the DOT? What concern do you want
But
me to?
can you and I get together and talk about that a little
Yeah,
bit more?
that's fine.
I
Okay.
think their concept was that last parking space was backing back out in Anderson.
Yeah.
It's gonna be worse with the diagonal maybe or not.
Yeah.
We can move that up and not have that same thing.
Mhm.
And they don't realize that every parking space along Anderson, people have to back out of. So,
And even the lot right next to the tower,
Yeah.
when I,
That's
went back with them, I was like, that's closer than what we're even,
Yeah.
putting out there.
so they haven't been here and looked at.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, let's get another one on parking. 14A, clarification on the parking and charging. And I'll add to the copy.
Yes, at the budget retreat on January 27th, the board discussed their vision for the 2026 paid parking. And as part of that, we also reviewed the recommendations from Auto Connect, which is our paid parking vendor, our third-party vendor who we've used here. Some of their recommendations we went through with the board, some of them were accepted. This year, we won't plan on having hang tags, but there'll be a process in which each property owner can log into Auto Connect and they can put in their certain information, which we'll give you more on that later, to obtain their free parking pass. So it'll be actually a little bit simpler in the process. You won't have to come down to town hall and keep up with your hang tag that apparently blew out all over the place. So that'll be good. But another, there was also a recommendation to expand some of the paid parking, but this year, the board has decided not to expand the paid parking. So what we had last year, the oceanfront property accesses, the gravel lots, and the south end will be the paid parking spots. We did discuss the south end parking lot, and it was decided to extend the hours of the paid parking at the south end lot only until 10 o'clock. That is when we actually close the gate there at the south end parking lot. But in doing so, the board had wished to allow residents to have free parking there after 7 p.m. So between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m., it would be free to residents. Unfortunately, the system for Auto Connect doesn't do that, can't be implemented that way. So I now need to have the board decide if they would like to have resident parking free at the south end with their pass for the entire time that it is the paid parking up until 10 o'clock, or if they would like to have that paid all the way up to the 10 o'clock. It can't be split in a hybrid situation in which residents get free parking for a few of those hours.
So the only way for residents not to pay to go watch sunset would be paid parking ends right now it's at 5, correct?
Currently, it was at 5 o'clock.
So we could extend to 7.
You can extend it as far as you want to go. The extension of 7 or 10 o'clock is not really the question.
But you can't bifurcate when residents can park for free.
Correct.
So
That's correct.
the easiest solution would be to go back to paid parking to 7 o'clock. Or leave it to 10 and residents need to pay to go down there to watch sunset.
Well, if you look at the information that we've had in the past, when they had the residents that used the beach access, was very few. I mean, if you look at the number of passes that people used going, was very few. So I'm just saying, if we went down there and said no charge, don't even charge residents at all, we're not gonna lose a lot of income.
I think you're opening a door you'll regret opening if you do that, because that's a totally different lot.
Yeah, I mean, during the day, our residents aren't gonna go down there during the day.
But we're talking about.
I go down there 3 times a week.
That analysis stopped at 5. So we don't really know how many residents park after 5.
Did we count the
I'm
residents?
talking about out here on these.
Wait, did we count,
The number of residents didn't use these very much.
did we count the residents at the south end only?
No, because
we
there
did.
wasn't a way to do that because there was no free parking. There was no
I would argue, Joe, it's a very different parking scenario down there. Oceanfront, we make about $1,000 per parking place. Down there, we make about 4,000. It is totally different.
But what I'm
And
saying is that your residents hardly even used these before. So why are they gonna go more go to the beach? Why are they gonna go down there a lot more? They're gonna go to
because
the
it's a
beach?
very different offering. You'll find out after you let residents park down there for free anytime that there'll be a lot more usage and the revenue off that south end parking lot. The only way you're gonna find out is after the fact that it got encroached.
James, but during the day, I guarantee the residents don't wanna go down there. That place is so crowded. Residents don't wanna go down during the day. They might go during the night, but they're not.
Homes that go down there and walk on a regular basis. I do,
Walk, you may walk.
but you gotta park to get down there
They've been playing for it down there.
sometimes. No. I don't go about, yeah.
I think when you open it up for free parking after a certain time, it's gonna be a free for all. So I don't know if the residents are even gonna be able to get in there and find a spot.
Well, it's free after 5 right now.
I know, it's crowded. It's crowded. You know, Maria, you're in that area, so you probably see it more than enough.
Make them pay.
He's not a resident, don't listen to him.
All right, Mario Pin 2121 Shoreline. That place is packed. You're crazy if you take a review. There aren't that many residents that go down there. You know, the ones that do, they park illegally anyway. So, you know.
So your
and usually
recommendation
there's a
charge
resident-
till 10 o'clock?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
You know, what I said at your budget meeting was, I would close a lot at 9 and close until 9. But that's my opinion, you know, but if you're going till 10, I would charge right up there. And Otto probably can't get there that much after those, but that's all that.
Aren't you gonna be out there writing tickets at 10?
Only if you want me to. But you get.
Yeah.
But you're crazy if you don't. I mean, I know the mayor knows he goes that lot. That lot is not in the zoo. And you got a lot of people at 4:50 or 4:45, they sit in the car, wait till it's 5 o'clock. Now they can't do that. The revenue is gonna go through the roof.
Aren't there a lot of cars still out there between 7 and 10?
Yes. They don't leave until about 8:30. After sunset. You know, some people stay longer, they got little kids and all that, but the last fact. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
What's the flavor of the board? Oh, sure.
I'm gonna speak as a person who got a ticket for parking at South End, and it ticked me off beyond belief. And it was early in the day. It was early in the day. I know what goes down on that South End. I've seen that too. I don't think residents should be charged to park there. We already pay taxes. It's our land. I don't think we should be charged to park there, period. Nothing you say will change my mind. Do I think you should charge everybody else? Yeah, 100%. You're missing nothing. That's my opinion.
Anyone else?
Do have a question?
Sure.
So, how many years is our contract with Auto?
It renews annually.
Is there a proper time? Have I missed it? Yeah. Have we discussed them as far as their performance over last year, the contract? I know the other beach towns get very serious about that issue. And what type of bifurcation companies offer, things like that, that make it more meaningful to the residents. And all. I'm not trying to open Pandora's box. I'm just curious.
I think when we chose, we did a little research on different people, different firms, and some of them aren't interested in coming down here.
Is that right?
And so it's kind of a limited version. And I really gave, I think, the best price as well, so. And it may be a little bit wins, I don't know. That's live.
You raise a good point. We ought to look on an annual basis. Yeah.
I think it's too tight in this season.
Yeah.
But next season, that would, he knows we're looking. Performance might be better.
Yeah, and I think we can, do that when we get their paid parking, report for that previous year. That might be a good time to kind of review that and maybe even have them in to have a conversation.
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion so we at least get this thing moving. And I'll state a motion, but I'd like to make a comment. I'll make a motion that we extend paid parking till 10 PM, but that we allow residents to park there for free. Okay. And what we lose on residents parking, we're gonna make up after 5. If you look at it relative to last year, I believe even more. We will get more non-residents parking between 5 and 10 than we will residents parking all day, because residents don't typically go down there during the day. So we're not really cutting into that revenue by allowing it.
Discussion. Can Auto identify a resident versus a non-resident?
Only if they've registered their one plate number.
They
to
already
their
do on
account.
the ocean side.
Yeah, I'm just saying that it needs to be clear that a resident just can't drive down there.
Oh, no, they have to have a permit.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
It would just make it the same for all the lots. Except that we charge till 10 down there. That would be the only difference between that lot and the other lots.
Okay.
And I'm open to amendments. I just want to get it going.
Sure. Any further discussion?
We have to vote on that one before we can offer an alternative, don't we? Because you got a motion in a second.
He's open for an amendment. And Steve? Sure. Okay.
Yeah, especially if there's a motion to amend, friendly amendment.
I just-
With the
I think
original
you're right,
one,
Mike.
except for friendly amendment.
I think you're opening a can of worms by letting the residents park down there because we don't know. That lot's revenue production is totally different from the ocean access revenue production. Joe is correct. The residents haven't used the ocean access parking as much as we thought. I think that's a special situation down there, and I think the usage may be different. I would support keeping it open and charging till 10, but everybody pays.
And here's where I get clarity, because the motion.
No, I just, he can reconsider, hold it where it is.
Well, we need an amendment to the motion. Are you asking him to amend the motion?
No, I will, that's a different motion.
Okay.
I think we need to vote on our motion. If it fails,
Yeah, we need to vote on the motion that's on the table.
Which is keep it open at 10 and residents can park down there all day, any day, free. That, correct me if I'm wrong though, Christina, does that mean that a resident would then, if they were parked down there and they moved to an ocean front, will they now have to pay? Because if they pay at an ocean front, they're free down there.
If you pay at any lot, then no. Okay, wait, because right now we don't allow South End parking lot to be free for residents. But if it was, let's say that it was free for residents, you could park and get a day pass, pay for the day at any of the lots. And let's say you want to leave for lunch, come back and now your spot's gone and there's no more spots in that particular lot that you were at, you can go to another Topsail Beach paid lot and your free day pass is still your paid.
So I guess what I'm asking, and Mario, you may know, will Otto be able to handle that residents' license plates are free at that lot, but not at all the other lots?
No, they are free.
Okay.
Free everywhere.
Yeah, so they would be free everywhere. If, if that was the motion passed. Right.
so again, my motion passes. The only difference between the ocean lots and the south end would be the time.
Yes. Until
The
10 p.m.
permits, our permits would work anywhere, everybody else would be paying per day or per hour.
Okay.
But you got, how many spots down there? 27 spots down there and 97 in the ocean front.
Still looking for comment, or we just need to?
I say, well, it's still in discussion, but let's go ahead and take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Uh,
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, what's up next? How you want to do it?
Go ahead, Nancy. Make your motion.
Sure.
I like your idea. I think we're a year off. I think we need to find every dollar of revenue that we can right now because of everything that we've got to pay for. And I think we need to sit down with Otto and others and see if their industry's abilities and software are changing and can better meet our needs a year from now. That's all I got.
I think that is a great
I think
idea.
we're gonna do that. We should do that.
Yeah.
But we need to, how are we gonna deal with this on the parking side of things?
Well, what he just said is move forward with parking being paid till 10 PM for everybody. And let's find out if there is a vendor that could allow resident passes to work down there after 5, 7, whatever time of day.
I think that's the hinge point, but we can't divide it.
We can't bifurcate enforcement right now.
So all we'd be changing is the time that the south end line.
Right.
Um,
And then if you see a massive jump in revenue from having it open longer, then you rethink that. It worries me because I don't know how much resident usage would be down there. Is it gonna encroach on revenue that we really need right now? I don't know. I'll make a motion that we extend the paid parking at the south end lot till 10 PM.
Second. The motion second, any conversation, discussion?
Put down that paid part there for everyone.
It already is.
Okay.
Understood. Okay, all in favor?
Like,
Opposed?
Aye.
Still passes.
Thank you very much.
Let's leave parking alone. Now during the attorney's report, Steve?
Commission is well aware of the work that town planning is expecting special events ordinance. One which I think has been on this board now, though it's been a day in my existence. But I think we'll bring up something that is useful to you at the next March meeting. I've also been involved, as you discussed during closed session today. I will be out of the country next, I'll arrange for young J.D. Fisher to stand in my stead for that process, which you experienced in.
We'll take it easy on.
Thank you so much.
Christina, you want to add anything to your report?
No, you have the report. I do want to point out though that I did get an update from the Army Corps of Engineer on the dilapidated dock. They have received all the permits that they need in order to move forward with the project. So they're basically putting together their bid package now to go out for bids and have the work, they plan to have the work done and have the pier removed prior to Memorial Day.
wow.
I have that in writing.
We'll throw a party to that.
I'll keep you updated.
Hope those piers don't break off.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is the stormwater pipe camera work that William mentioned is actually, we're doing that next Wednesday. So we moved that up a little bit. They had some cancellations and we're looking for work. So we jumped at the opportunity.
I express my, thank all of us, appreciation for your department and their handling of the snow removal and in response to broken pipes. Nice to know you got our backs.
Yeah, thank you.
And we got yours.
Nothing to add, Mayor.
You want to add anything?
No, okay.
Thank
I want to talk about parking.
you. Public comment. Anyone? No comment? Hey, boy. We're almost. Okay, Mayor and Commission Board. Alex, you want to start?
Sure. Now that the weather's warming up, you'll probably see me out and about. Feel free to grab me if you want to ask me questions about anything with the budget or town things. Also a reminder, early voting starts tomorrow for the primaries for the election that's in the fall. The two early voting locations are the Pender Annex Building in Hampstead and the Cooperative Extension Building in Berghoff. Election day is March 3rd. Our precinct voting would be at the Community Center Gym in Surf City. And then lastly, don't forget, next weekend, we have the American 250. Might be a little crowded downtown, so pay attention to that. Sign up online if you want to come down, have a meal, with some dancing and crafts and things like that. And I have this if anybody wants to look at it.
Tom, you get a lot cleared by then? John?
Historically, small government has bad reputation in capital projects, like building public safety buildings and things of that nature. We all know that we're in great hands with the folks that have their finger on the budget and on the specifications and everything on this building. And I think that we're going to prove that whole reputation wrong at Topsail Beach.
So, John?
Appreciate your confidence, John. My report would be, I've spent a lot of time thinking about the public safety building, and I do feel support from everybody, including out there, so thank you.
Nancy?
I want to reiterate something Alex said, is the Chamber of Commerce had a candidate forum, and you can pull it up on a website. It's 2 hours long, but you can fast forward it. You can have a beverage of choice while you listen to it. But I urge you all, you heard what they said today about the revaluations. Who's making decisions for us in Pender County is more important to your wallet than the decisions that we up here are making by a lot. And I urge you all to be informed and to get out and vote, because it's very, very important. And we help with our valuations subsidize the rest of the county. My opinion, working on the budget won't get that much for it. So we really want to be sure we got the best people there we possibly can. I'll also add that John and I tease each other. He is very much on the farm. I was telling him when they showed the colors, I immediately made the committee, Christina, Connie, and I, because he tried to take industrial colors and tell me they were beachy colors. And we compromised with the beachy industrial colors. Yeah.
Got last. Appreciate everybody coming out. We had a great meeting. A lot going on. Probably the next big thing we got going on, and everybody thought we come, is we'll be talking about budget and March. In March there. And hopefully, like I said, we'll have our figures back for the tax. That are gonna know what, their situation, where all the tax line.
All right, thank you for coming, and for those looking on stream. It's been an odd few weeks here, snow and then rain and 60-degree weather. So welcome to North Carolina. And it has been exciting working on the building. I think we're getting there. We're probably forcing the contractor to do more than he anticipated. But I think John was right. We're going to prove them wrong, that we're holding their feet to the fire. So we have your best interest in mind. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
On favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.
Under 2 hours.
It's just
Maybe next week, early in the week. Early in the week.
They got it's a stretch for them. Yeah, there was so many of them. Yeah.
the whole time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there were so many of them.
Yeah.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Beyond that.
If I cut it on. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.